February 27th, 2022. Your three amigos of the TA report are back once again. Bags with Nick JFDI and Gotham GP. So we were just discussing before I hit the record button, but there's still just a lot of pessimism out there. And I think, I'm optimistic by nature. You guys know me that well by now. It's hard for me to stay pessimistic too long. But when I look at a chart like the S&P right here, the SPY, when I look at the S&P, the SPY, I kind of see these divergences that have been taking place. And I wrote about this earlier today in my weekly email. We just got this downtrending RSI as price uptrended, which creates what's called a negative divergence. And now we may have a positive divergence. And if I follow that downtrend on down in RSI, we might be getting an RSI breakout. So there's still, there's a lot of news happening this week with, Ukraine and Jay Powell on the Hill, and we still have 2 more weeks before we get to the FOMC meeting. So there's a lot of chop that can happen. But I just think this is set up for a beautiful rally potentially. Okay, and that's the end of our show. See you next week. No, GP, Nick, chime in, please.
Yeah, I don't know, just kind of off. A couple stocks that caught my eye were at the solars, actually. FSLR, ENPH, and what was it, SEDG, SEDG. If you pull up the weekly chart of each one of them, they all held pretty nicely, like the low end of like a lot of their ranges. So let's see, FSLR. FSLR closing back above 70, had kind of a nice tail low. ENPH kind of held that, looks like, that 110.
You want weeklies of all these, Nick?
Yeah, and then same thing with SEDG, kind of held that 200 level. SEDG looks kind of the strongest here as of right now, but it's just a couple that I'm watching.
Which one's the last
like
one? What's the ticker?
SEDG.
SEDG.
I only say this because before you hit the record button, you're talking about being bullish or optimistic by nature, and if you bring the Qs back, the chart of the Qs back up, I'm just using probably that, like,
yeah, I'm getting there now.
That 370 area really. There's a lot of room for us to get uber bullish, like, so in my opinion.
So you're using this 370 area right here, basically.
It's kind of like a double bottom pivot, yeah, like that. So you have the January low, and then we basically spiked it, undercut it, here recently. Through that 370 would be kind of like my confirmation saying, like, we're heading higher. If you draw a trend line down, I'd probably use like that as an aggressive entry. Like if you draw a trend line down, so actually I would use maybe 350, 355 as like an aggressive entry, and then start looking for 370 to get taken out.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I can see it.
So
yeah, you want to be like right here. Yeah.
So as of right, I am long some names, but a lot of it's, again, still gold and the miners.
Well, if this bastardized Head and Shoulders that is not a Head and Shoulders really played out, 370 would definitely be above what those shoulders would be. I don't think this is a Head and Shoulders pattern, but people call it what they want to call it.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's call it the Roku bottom pattern, because I'm going to stick to that. to me, I
I think
think
it's more of a head and shoulders on the weekly than it is on the daily.
Yeah. Well,
I think
tell us
what-
about your love for Roku there, GP. You've been
Yeah, let's hear it.
espousing Roku for weeks.
yes, but what did I say? I think earlier this week, I'm like, that's odd. That was strength, right? That was, everything that's broken down on earnings is broken down more. Look at Facebook, just look at almost anything that's broken down. And Roku is one of those, let me move down 30% and then stop moving down. So it caught my eye early, early off of earnings, and then the strength was just unbelievable. If you look at the Thursday destruction day open, it was one of the first to recover. It was green like 3 minutes into the day, and like the markets were still so. But if you now look back at history, the two names that were breaking down way before the market broke down were Square and Roku.
Yeah.
Both of them started breaking down in October. They started breaking down in July, but they actually started breaking down in October. We peaked on the markets in November 22nd. If you look at Roku, I think it was October 18th, 19th. And if you look at Square, it was like October 26th, right? So before the markets even peaked, these stocks were already breaking down. So the reason I call it the Roku bottom versus the Square bottom is Roku first started showing strength, but it also was the first to start breaking down. So it started breaking down on the 18th of October. So what I like to see when I see price action is also divergences in the names that have brought us down, right? If these continue to go down while the market's still going down, then nothing's changed. There's no character shift. So here, here is your moment. Here's your character shift. Is it going to be a straight line up? No, Roku bottomed. I was talking about it earlier last week. Is Roku bottomed 6 days before the March 2020 bottom. It bottomed on the 17th, and the market bottomed on the 23rd.
You're still targeting like 190 there, right? GP?
I'm still targeting the 180. You see the kind of the breakdown level there, the base, like 177 to 200 kind of. Because Roku doesn't chill. It doesn't know how to chill. It's either extreme one way or extreme the other way. It refuses to believe in like a sane price action.
Yeah, that aligns with what I labeled this auto fib extension that I just threw on. It's like 178. So yeah, 180.
Yeah, it's just around there where the base initially broke down. And then you'll see if the price action represents itself, what I'm looking for is a move towards that area off of here and find resistance and come back and test that kind of the gap fill area, the 143, 140, 150 level. It's going to be kind of a bit painful off the big move, and then kind of sideways for a while and try to break out higher and then kind of refuse. And it'll continue like that for a while. I don't know how long, but it's
it basically hasn't had any chill all last week.
Dude, look at from the open on Thursday to where it closed. It said
14% on Thursday.
No, we don't care. Anything like so. I think fundamentally it also got pretty cheap. I'm not talking about like the PE ratio that everyone's now throwing out because it's the rage. I've been talking in our Discord group, bags. I've been talking about multiple compression since last January, right? Or even before that. It's just like it was something that's going to be happening. And now you have the multiple compression and people want more. Now now the greedy side's coming in. It's like, oh, I think there's another low coming. But the price action here is telling you that I think Roku's done. It might chop, don't get me wrong. Like if you're doing options, and you might get burnt out of your positions here and there, but it's a move from 490 to 102. And since 102, it has not stopped acting with strength. So the leaders of your breakdown in growth, Roku and Square, are showing, so you can bring up Square too here, right? It's very similar. Look at that. If you add in the 20-day, it tagged the 20-day intraday and just closed at the high of the day. It didn't even flinch, right? Like that's the 20-day hasn't broken since November. we've got close to it a bunch of times, 10-day bunch of times, but we broke and cleared that. So that to me is a trend change. Now you need confirmation, right? Like now you needed to push. And if you added in volume to this, bananas, 64 million shares just on Friday or something like that. It is the highest volume day in its history, I believe. So these are the ones I'm looking for. I'm not talking about the Qs. The Qs can do whatever they want. It has the Apple, Microsoft, that. Apple looked a little weak during the week. I know it closed pretty strong on Friday, but it looked weak. So you could have the indices come in, and now the growth stocks start to act better here, right? And start showing more strength until the until the mega caps kind of flush out some froth or whatever you want to call it. So I'm not necessarily concerned as much as with the indices here as I am now the change in pattern in some of the key growth stocks.
Yeah, and there's so much that's said, right, with, how much destruction has been done to the internals and things need to repair. Well, the growth names have been hit bigly, right? And they
Throw
have
up
come
T-Doc
down.
too while you're talking.
What's that?
Throw up T-Doc too while you're talking, right? It's not just
Sure.
Square and Roku. This is one of the other ones, and look at the earnings reversal, right? It flew down and then cleared up. And if you look at, I think you can even add in what was the other big one that burned down? Huh?
DocU.
I think Spot was one of them, but I don't really watch Spot, so I don't really care. I'm trying to think of the other one, but I can't think of it right now. But there's a lot of the ones that Fastly. Right, like that's not as strong, but this is one of the first to break down in the growth space. It was October 2020,
right,
where it broke down, not 2021, not 2022,
2020.
October 20, in the height of, we're getting multiple expansion, we're going to go through the moon. You have one of their growth stocks that essentially led out in 2020 was getting smoked, right? Consistently.
Yeah, I mean, it ran up to what, 130? Yeah, 133.
Yeah. And how they fumbled TikTok.
Now it's an $18 stock.
Yeah, exactly. And you saw one of their longtime Abadel or whatever it's called finally sell out of their entire position after being in the stock from like the 18-20 range all the way up to like $1.90 and then selling for like a loss. And they're fully out, right? So you have capitulation on an institutional level on one of the kind of 2020, early 2020 growth stocks.
Yeah, and I think where I was going with that, right, is there's been such destruction in these names that they obviously needed to repair. Well, names like Fastly, T-Doc, Square, they were earlier, they were the earlier names to start that price destruction, right? So we shouldn't be surprised that, coming off of, a precipitous drop like this of 86%, that at some point they're going to catch a bid. And the names that haven't fallen as much, that doesn't mean they're going to fall 70, 80%, but at the same time, you expect these names that have been beaten up to finally start to get some legs. That doesn't mean they're running back to all-time highs either by any means.
No,
but at the same time, how much oversold is too oversold?
Yeah. So I think the question I asked in the Discord room was Square was trading at where it was in 2018 when it was making $3.7 billion a year in revenue versus what it's making now. It's what was it, like 17 billion for 2021? So almost 5 times as much as it made in 2018, and it was the same price. They're also profitable, I think $1 billion a quarter. So they're more profitable now than their entire revenue was in 2018. And keep in mind the 10-year rates back then were 3%, not the 1.9 or 2% that it is now. So,
and here's the QQQJ with a lot of those, younger growth names.
Yep.
I
So
think
this is
Roku's
what
the
I'll be
second
watching
or
this week.
third largest holding in this ETF. And I pointed this out earlier. I mean, it's clear positive divergence. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't go on for a while for it to eventually confirm and play out, but we see the makings of that right there.
Yeah. You could also argue lower RSI, right? Like on each one of these spikes up. So you could also say that it's coming down. Like you can interpret, like right here in the last 3 or 4 days, each high was on a lower RSI, right? So we need to make a new.
Yep, you got to
higher.
confirm.
Yeah. So, but like, so my general thesis for this week is, okay, we saw a divergence in the oversold growth names. Now you need to see kind of confirmation to the upside on these to move higher. And I'm not talking about like 3% higher. I'm talking about like full on confirmation. So like Roku handled on Thursday, by 9:35 on Thursday, Roku was green, already filled the gap, already green. Markets were still deep red at 9:35 in the morning on Thursday after we gapped down 3.5%, right? So like that's the type of strength I'll be looking for in some of the beaten up growth names to see if it's now a divergence between the indices kind of stay flat and choppy and the names that got destroyed underneath start acting stronger, right? So like essentially a rotation.
So speaking of rotation, if money is going into these names, what might they be coming out of?
So Apple's one of them, is the one I
Yep.
was thinking about, right? Like if you're talking about just tech, for like I know other sectors as well, but Apple's one of them that kind of it held the 200-day, but it wasn't like a strong kind of hold, right? Like it was a good bounce, but Apple is one of them that can come in. Microsoft was stronger, but it's hitting 200-day. Tesla wasn't that strong on Friday, right? So those are the ones. And then obviously the gold and energy names is where I'm thinking a lot more rotation comes from.
Yeah. So
and we've been talking about this a couple of weeks now, right? That
right.
rotation is coming.
Right. And we're I think we're starting to play that rotation game again. That we don't know how long that these things last, but coming back to my divergence, right? We had a new high on the XLE in February 11th, but we didn't have a high in RSI. And it looks like it's diverging. Now the XLF, which is the financials, not quite a divergence because price is trending down and RSI is trending down. But what I thought was interesting is, we made a new lower low there on both the price and the RSI to match that lower high. So if that plays out, we could probably expect financials to do one of these too, right? Which money is coming out of. So I just think it's a really interesting time in the market with, all the geopolitics and all the inflation and the Fed and everything that's going on in the world. But price is king, right? Price is kind of indicating where things might be going or possibly are going.
Yeah, and it was fun being a bear for about 6 hours. I like I said, if it breaks below January 24th lows, I will switch stances. It broke below and accelerated immediately off the bat because of crazy Putin. But it was kind of bananas. So by like 11 or 12 o'clock, I'm like, no, this is going to turn, right? This is going to go green. And fair enough, we were green by midday on the markets. So and it was a strong bar. I know the DVOL and the UVOL weren't as high as people want them to be, so they're still anticipating lower points. I just think the price action and then the follow through on Friday was pretty, like we haven't seen that type of follow through in a while.
So last week
Okay.
before we started our session, I was messing with Nick and I played the Soviet um, national anthem when he joined our call here. Part of that was, we were all expecting something to happen in Ukraine that none of us really wanted to happen. But at the same time, Nick has been very bullish on gold. And Nick, I'm interested to hear about how your gold plans or trades are currently working out in either the GLD or the miners.
They're looking all right. I mean, so the three big ones I have on right now are Ego, NEM, and FNV, and they all kind of ate up like that Thursday's bar. I mean, NEM didn't. But I don't know. I'm just gonna continue to trail stop them. I try to trail stop, like that's kind of what I use moving averages for on the sell side. Is a lot of times I'll trail stop underneath like major moving averages, the 20-day, the 50-day, sometimes the 200-day. I don't have yeah, I mean, it just kind of all depends, but
You're hanging in there with it for now, though.
Yeah, for now. Thursday's action didn't get me. I don't know. I like, as long as let's see, let me pull up that weekly chart.
Yeah, and you can share your screen too.
I mean, as long as gold kind of hangs up around here, or GLD hangs up kind of like around above 173, 174, I'm gonna continue to sit tight. If it starts to break under that, and really, yeah, 172.
Yeah.
I don't have an opinion as far as like what's moving what, as far in the in terms of like the global, what's going on globally. I'm just following the price and the trend.
Yeah, I think that's what I think. I posted a couple of charts yesterday on gold. Is you have potentially a move to like 192, but
Yeah.
The interesting thing is on the weekly and monthly bars, the Bollinger Bands or the standard deviation, whatever you want to call it, is not expanding out, right? So to me, your risk is obviously, to me, that is, to the upside versus the downside here.
Yeah. The on that weekly, I don't know if this necessarily plays a role in terms of like the commodities or whatever metal, but with the close on Friday, this is kind of the new range that I'm looking at gold or the GLD to kind of hold, because now, like, if we hold tight here, or at least close somewhere around here next week, we have a 3-week tight right here at kind of a high end of this kind of weekly range.
Yeah,
that would set us up to kind of break out above that 182.50.
Yeah.
And so the bags, this is kind of what I'm talking about, right? Like, what I would have liked to see, as you can see, the upper part of the band is starting to expand out, but the lower band is not, saying to me that it's not ready yet, right? Like, if I'm looking at this, as you can see, when it starts to expand out, both, like if you're looking back in July of 2019, when it hit the top of the band, it started moving up, but both, the whole mouth kind of opened up, right? So that's what I'm looking at. Whereas if the bands aren't opening up on these moves, and these are spikes.
I saw somebody post it's like an alligator's jaw, right? Like you want to see them both open up wide to see that move.
Correct. And that's, so like, this is what I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, is like, I think people are expecting gold to finally break out, and I don't see it happening, because for me, this is a fully technical move, not a fundamental move.
Oh, for sure.
Right. For sure. So I tend to err on the side of judgment in terms of technicals when it comes to gold, because it just doesn't it doesn't move the way anyone wants it to.
No, it certainly doesn't. Certainly doesn't.
So like, and you had that mass. That was part of a thing that I also noticed on Wednesday night when the whole world was collapsing on the attacks, is that the first spike of oil didn't take out the spike from 6 days ago. And I found that to be really odd. It eventually did, but I found that to be super odd that a war of all things couldn't break the prior week's high, right? On the initial spike. So I had a feeling that you're gonna see a moving like down average, but you'll see that it's also at the extended range of the bands. All right. So as soon as it starts getting into those extended ranges, and you see how it's not expanding there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anything on the daily, it's contracting.
So you'll have a little bit of spikeage up towards. They'll try to trap a few more people, is what I think, and then has a move down, right? And what this tells me is that energy is going to come down, which means potentially inflation comes down, right? So where I'm looking is that you have a potential of like a tailwind on a lot of the kind of growth equity names. And then you also have the Fed potentially saying, okay, we did raise rates once, but we're gonna now wait to see how inflation looks a month from now, even though the talk has been whatever the talk has been. But rates are a short-term conversation. Inherently, rates going up makes everything slightly better. So you gotta weather the storm here. We had higher rates in 2018 and 2019. We were actually in the middle of quantitative tightening in 2018 when we had our growth scare, so to speak. We're not even there on any of those things. And I know the market's forward-looking, but it's literally like priced in Armageddon. So there's a lot of positive things that I'm noticing. Now you just kind of need confirmation to the downside in some of these names and see more rotation. VIX was another one. Didn't expand out. Didn't hit prior highs from the week before or 2 weeks before, and it came back in. What are you looking at, Bags?
That's the VIX futures. I was looking at the 10-year.
Okay, but you'll see like the 10-year was higher in 2018. I'm going to keep going back and forth between names. Right? Like,
yeah, no, and
I war and VIX hasn't hit a new high.
While you were talking, I was peeking at the EEM, which is in the emerging markets, but at the same time, there's probably some Russia exposure in there, and I flipped it over to the K-Web, and I should probably
and look at the corporate bonds. Massive move on HYG the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And then you have stocks like AMD coming in and saying, I hear you think growth stocks are done. You know what? We're
going to buy 8 billion.
8 billion. Right? Like, so maybe I'm mistaken, but they're obviously seeing something that makes sense to start a buyback. And you're actually seeing pretty high insider transactions, people buying, except for PayPal.
It wasn't just
insiders buy like 10,000 to show you strength, and you're like, come on, guy.
I mean, it wasn't just it was how well that buy program was placed for AMD. It's like, all right, let's start buying 105 like right now.
Yeah, and these guys like insiders and stuff like that don't always know, but what to me, what Lisa Suyer-Bay is saying is like, I hear you guys, but I think this is quite undervalued.
I know how well my own business is doing, and we are undervalued at $105 to $110 to $120.
Yeah,
I totally agree. Totally agree.
So like, there's a lot of things here for me that are looking positive. Now we just need some, it's gonna get choppy, man. It's gonna be frustrating for sure. But once we get out of this chop and frustration, it should resolve to the upside, right? So
Well, it's been months since we've had real follow through, right? I think the
Yeah.
last time was, when we broke through here in October through to the all-time highs. Every time since, November, every time we've pushed up, it's been a pullback, right? It's pushed up and pulled back. That's on AMD, but we can look at almost any chart and it's going to be similar, right? We came off those September lows and ran to new all-time highs.
Yep.
And every time, we sank down, we came back, no follow through. We came back, no follow through, right? So I think, for the bullish thesis is it's going to be good to have a week of follow through eventually.
yeah.
So that might not happen this week. It could happen this week, but it might not happen this week. But it's definitely setting up to be, in our opinion, I think GP more optimistic than not.
Yeah, then hey man, if price action completely fails, it fails, right? Like if we tomorrow gap down below Thursday's lows, you better find some shelter because it's gonna get dirty.
The selling's over when the sellers are exhausted, right? And
Yeah.
that's
But look,
that simple.
Change this to the Q bar, right? Like I don't like hammer, I don't like calling things hammer and stuff like that. But if you're looking at sold price action here, it broke the prior week's low and accelerated down hard. But where did it close? It almost closed above the prior week's open, right? On a week-to-week basis. Like that's some pretty decent strength. Obviously, you need follow through, but
Let's see how Kathy did.
Kathy did well.
Yeah.
No, like like Kathy well, not like real well.
Yeah. No, I mean, since February 16th, 2021, it's been a downtrend. So yeah, no, it's
still a downtrend, right? It's still making lower lows, but now you need confirmation to say I'm going to make higher highs.
But I don't think any of us are going to complain at a 16% week, right? From low to high.
Yeah, and then like I think a couple of the charts that I shared over the weekend were Netflix and Amazon on a month-to-month basis. Like these broke down to like these are the mega caps, these are the leaders, these are our growth darlings. If you show the Bollinger Band 3 standard deviation on a monthly basis.
Oh, monthly.
Right? This is a double tag, right? It's a different type of double bottom to me, but it's essentially tagging the way oversold twice and then once and then coming back and testing it, saying, okay, I'm done, right? So these have led to big moves to the upside in the past. So these are the two that I'll be watching in the mega cap space as well. Amazon, similar if you bring up Amazon.
Well, and you can get in at that Bill Ackman price if you buy here too at 390.
Yeah. Oh no, 340, 350.
Oh, he was in.
He
was in at 350. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so like Amazon, the same thing. If you pull up Amazon on the monthly.
I don't want to look at Amazon GP. I want to get off in Chicago.
No, stop. Okay, I'm not a financial advisor. You do what you like, but yeah, I know Seth is going to love me for that one. But if you go onto a month basis here,
Bollinger Bands again, pow pow,
pow pow, and what happened? Contraction, right?
Yep.
So now you should see expansion. This is a monthly chart, so you're not going to see 4,000 by next week.
I need to buy some more Amazon.
But to me, this is a good trend. And the last time it did this was 2008. If you look at those bands on a month-to-month basis.
It's a beautiful chart, though.
Just
the history of the chart. Anyway.
Now, if you go back to 2008 was the last time. Right there. So these are the things I'll be watching, right? Like we obviously need price action to confirm, but you finally broke January 24th lows, and the bears had everything in their corner, everything ready to say, you guys are finally going to get your 80% correction, and they fumbled it.
Bears stay dropping the soap.
Yes, they definitely got into the soap arena. So like it's just stuff to watch, right? Like I'm optimistic because I'd rather be optimistic than pessimistic in life. There's other things to always be, but I enjoy this. This is what I really love to do, and I love the pattern, price action, and so that's what we're watching here.
Hey Nick, you were talking about two solars that I kind of watch, In Phase and First Solar. Are you in either one of those right now? Do you
No,
no, just watch
I'm
them.
kind of kicking myself for not throwing. I don't know. I'm kicking myself a little bit for not throwing a couple starters out there on any of them, but they're at the top of my list.
Check out Melly as well, Bags. Look at that
Melly?
weekly bar.
Yeah.
You're done with
PANW as
solars.
well.
Yeah, I think
Look at
I
that
like
weekly
In
bar.
Phase.
It literally said, screw you the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Did you see PANW?
Oh yeah, Palo Alto killed it.
Dude, I was like,
I mean, look at this rager. I mean, I like to call out ragers, but God bless America. Look at that beautiful. I mean, and not just one, but following it up. I mean, that's what we want to see, right? And that's the follow up we want to see.
Yeah.
It's a former holding of mine. I keep it on watch. It's been having some issues around this 500 level for a while, but after earnings and after the massive day, especially for cybersecurity stocks on Thursday, it's basically back at all-time highs. I mean,
so this is what we talked about, I think, 3 weeks ago, Bags, is I love the power. The weekly chart is great, but how come it couldn't take out all-time highs? That's what I don't understand.
Well,
This much strength, it should have cleared that all-time highs on Friday, no doubt, right? Like it should have just crushed it, and it didn't. So like it keeps me a little hesitant, right? Like
That's
powerful move, but that power should have carried it past all-time highs.
we can't always get what we want,
close.
right? And I don't think any of us would be surprised to see some sellers step in, first thing in the morning, right? Monday morning. I don't think that would surprise any of us. But that's a beautiful move. Anyway, but
So
I hear you, GP. I hear you. Loud.
The open on that 1228 is 570.30. I at least would have liked to seen that clear, right? It closed like 55 cents below, but it's like it's just something I always kind of wonder. I'm like, why is something so strong going to be like, I'm not going to just take this out?
Yeah,
so
it's a valid point. Things that make you go,
It could mean nothing. It could mean everything. Who knows?
Long term, though, cybersecurity is no brainer, in my opinion. This is not financial advice. This is just understanding that all of our lives are more online than ever before, and there are bad guys trying to scheme and prevent you from living your best life online. Anyway,
and so like the other two that I think if you follow Trader Stewie on Twitter, he talks about quite often is the PEG. Power earnings gap.
Yeah.
People talk about it in different ways, and the ones that come up on my radar on the power, like you don't want a Google, you don't want an Amazon, which gapped up on earnings and then gave it all back. But if you look at the two kind of other names that were on my radar is Bill.com and Snap, both held their earnings gap up like champs. Like Snap
Bill
better
and
than
which
Bill.
one?
Snap.
Right,
like it gapped down on Thursday's massive. Like Snap didn't even do that. Snap didn't even get into the gap. It's like, look at that. Like It's not like super strength, but that's as
Yeah,
powerful as
strength.
you in a market like we've had. That's insane that it didn't even try to break into the gap on Thursday.
Congratulations if you bought Snap at $24, $25 a couple weeks ago. You made a hell of a trade.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are the two that, like, if we start trending in the markets better, that these are where I think buyers show up, Snap and Bill.com, right? So you got to watch for it. But these are in what we call the market mayhem over the last few weeks. For you to hold an earnings gap like that,
It's been good.
it's something to watch.
You got to watch.
Right? Like Nick, you're a trend trader for the most part. You want the meat of the move. You don't care about the lows of the highs. These to me are in your
Yeah.
gonna trend camp.
Gotta watch.
What was it? That's the other one I was looking at.
We can go into my weekly Bitcoin segment.
Yeah, let's talk about your crypto.
No, Nick, if you got something else, we can do that too.
I might take a nap.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, no, nothing's changed on Bitcoin. I mean,
Hence the nap.
nothing's changed, right? 4,500's been the pivot that we need to take out. Can't do it. It's hitting that 21 daily. We're well below the 21 weekly. There's nothing that's saying this is an impending reversal to the upside with any immediacy. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I still am buying Polkadot though. I'm still biting off some Polkadot little by little. Take my 12% and just take it to the bank.
Do you look at Luna at all?
Yeah, I like Luna. It's not on my list because I don't have myself or my younger sons in it. But yeah, no, Luna's nice. Luna, I mean, I think Cookie and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and I think he posted about it. He loved it down here in this 50s area. And now it ran to 73.5, ran up to almost 79, did run to 79. So yeah, it's a good look.
That's a big move on the weekly.
Yeah, it's strong.
And it broke the downtrend.
Adam Cosmos is having some airdrops. It's caused some excitement over there too. Let me find it. So it had it's kind of sold some of it off, but it had a nice little 2-day rally. People trying to get in before they get some free tokens. Anyway, so yeah, Bitcoin's threatening to become Buckcoin again, but we'll see. It still needs to make a new low, but it hasn't yet. Very well could, but it hasn't yet.
Not to go back to gold. I just pulled up the gold futures chart, like 1840. As long as gold holds about 1840, I will remain in the camp that I'm in.
I thought I had gold futures in my saved list.
GC.
That's such a dirty. Gold is such a frustrating.
I know.
Like, just behave, just go. And you figured that, like, people have been trapped from like a couple of years now, gold, because it's traded between 1670 and 1950 for like, I don't know, 2 years now. So I can see when it gets back to that peak that it's going to find sellers. So you needed to not find sellers and push through here.
Yeah, what kind of thing what needs to happen for gold to really just start fucking ripping? You know what I mean?
Maybe Elon starts using it in his batteries. Like, I don't
Yeah.
really know. I don't know what, besides it's a store of value, as people call it. I don't know what gets it to go, right? Besides more buyers than sellers.
Sure.
All right,
And
we're about 7.5 minutes away from the futures opening. We're
looks like
going
a green open. What happened to the, I love when I start seeing the Wall Street weekend bets. It reminds me of 2020.
yeah.
Well, it's probably gonna be a
So
down open,
that's
isn't
what I
it?
wanted to ask.
I think we're looking at a
How
down
is it
open.
going to open, Nick? Are we going to open flattish? Are we going to gap up? We're going to gap down? What do you think is going to happen?
Just follow. I think follow Bitcoin.
So
Bitcoin.
down,
Yeah.
a
So
gap down or just down?
I mean, let's see. God, that would really fuck a lot of people if they got that thing down. Yeah, looking at like the SPY, like, could you just imagine like a 430 open and it just rolls over hard? Like, oh God, that would hurt.
They, on
Uh,
Thursday, what I noticed was they were buying in the thousands for the Monday 444 calls on the SPY for like 8 to 12 cents. They were going bananas. I think it ended up being close to like 30,000 calls is what I noticed. So I think we're gonna head towards there.
Sure.
But yeah, it was just like I was watching them kind of just go ham on those 444 calls. I'm like, wow.
So GP saying up?
I think we close green tomorrow.
Oh, close. Yeah, close.
No. How are we going to open? How I'm just
Typically for the last 6 months, if we close at the highs, we open on a gap down. If we close at the lows, we open on a gap up. So if we close at the highs, I'm assuming gap up that gets, gap down that gets bought.
gap down that gets bought.
Holy cow! I was trading this stock OTRK last year.
Oh my God! It got
Contract.
Holy shit, dude! It's trading at $2 a share right now.
Well, they had fraud.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh. Well,
You see that big gap down?
That'll
Yeah.
Not even at 21. It's from up there. Yep, there it is. That was like basically the fraud announcement. So people are just, they go sideways while they're getting out of their position.
There were a few of those over the past year and a half of fraud, right? Like we had Nikola, right?
Yes.
That was fraud. We had, what was it, XL Fleet? Was that another one?
Might have been. Workhorse got smoked. Jesus.
Yeah, $1.82.
Workhorse 2, they lost a UPS contract
what do you
that they
think
never
of?
had.
What do you think of LCID Lucid?
That's the second time now.
Yeah, somebody asked the other day.
Yeah. You buy Tesla? This is my usual response.
It's,
have earnings
it's
this
closed here the last 5 weeks. It's closed basically right here in the mid
5-week tight.
Yeah,
But trending down.
yeah, for sure.
And it couldn't put in a green week.
Yeah.
So I'm similar to GP on the thought, like if you're playing electric, you should own Tesla. But
yeah,
at the
for
same
sure.
time, you know, I can give you traditional manufacturers that I think are good too. I mean, I have a big position in Ford. I think GM is becoming stronger. I think Volkswagen may be the strongest outside of Tesla. So nothing against Lucid. I hope they do well. I think more competition, a more competitive industry is good, I think.
Yep.
But it's going to be hard to beat some of these traditional makers now that they're leaving internal combustion not behind, but they're transitioning away.
Yeah. So Nick, my biggest problem is I'm a long time Tesla bull, right? Like back in 2019 when Tesla got cut in half, it was doing $22 billion in revenue and the market cap was around 30 billion. and Lucid at its current price is doing nowhere close to $22 billion in revenue, and it's a $48 billion market cap. So I think part of it for me is like I thought we were talking about multiple compressions and all that other stuff. Why is this getting a better market cap value than when Tesla was getting cut in half and they were just ramping Model 3 production, right?
Sure.
So I struggle with that conversation. I'll be honest, right? Like I just struggle with it is on it. So it's hard for me to get behind these other makers like Rivian too, right? Like how is Rivian, I think, sold 1,000 cars last year, getting a $70 billion valuation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about what, 10, 12 bucks off the IPO price too.
Yeah.
I think it was like 75 bucks.
So
Like
like I struggle in general, so it's hard for me to be unbiased when it comes to these things, because why don't they also have to prove their models? I know
Well,
Tesla.
as far as Lucid's concerned, I think playing earnings for the sake of earnings is always a gamble. I call it the 60-30-10 rule. You got 60% downside, 30% flattish, 10% upside surprise on earnings. That's just the way it tends to happen. Now, don't get me wrong, those 10% to the upside, they can be big upside moves. But I just think that there's more risk on an earnings event than there is, possible explosion. So that's how I look at Lucid for this week. And now that doesn't mean they can't have a great earnings, right? But we've seen great earnings also get slapped down. And then as far as Rivian goes, I think Ford ended up selling out of their position, but Amazon's buying a bunch of their trucks. So I can see people be interested in that. As far as I know, Lucid doesn't have anything as substantial because it's all consumer focused, right? It's not commercial like Rivian has those trucks for Amazon. So, if coming back full circle to Workhorse, right? If Workhorse had gotten those units to the Postal Service, it might be a different story with them even, right? So I think there has to be some fundamental factor to make me want to be interested in a name outside of those traditional makers and or Tesla.
Dude, GM chart looks awful on the daily.
Yeah, it doesn't look great right now.
Wow. The 200-week moving
10
average?
seconds
Jesus.
from open. How are we going to do? I'm going to say down.
We're gapping down 180
I'm gonna say down.
points, it looks like.
I'm going to say down.
It looks like we're going to gap down 180. Oh, 350. Jesus.
There we go.
Once again, tech is leading down. What?
2% down.
This is all because the chip makers are not providing to Russia.
Is that really a reason to sell it?
Does
I mean,
the sarcasm not come through?
No, I'm just saying, like, there probably are people selling that though, right? And I mean, is that really a reason to sell?
Yeah, because Russia makes up so much of their money. Yeah. That's a pretty dirty gap down, huh?
Yep. 3% now.
Dude,
is that what the news was that the chip makers are going to refuse to?
No, they just, I mean, they're basically frozen out of the financial system now, and the sanctions also prevent them from getting different pieces of technology. So
this has got to be bullish for Bitcoin, wouldn't you think?
So yeah, I mean, I think it is because you can transfer Bitcoin, right? I think a lot of people, I mean, you've seen the lines at you've seen the lines at the ATM in Ukraine and Russia. Like, they know that their currencies are going to zero. We're not going to zero. They're getting smacked down hard. So they'd rather have their cash and leave it in the ATM when they may not ever be able to get cash again.
Yeah.
So I think it does make a bullish case for crypto in general, but short term, I just it's hard to make a really strong bullish case technically. And then also, supposedly the Russian government has a lot of Bitcoin that they're going to have to sell to be able to maybe survive for the.
Oh my God, dude, this is gnarly. Yeah.
So short term, it's hard to be extremely bullish, but those are the opportunities you take to buy and leg into things, right?
Yeah, totally.
So we tagged the January 24th lows here on the NQs.
On the Qs.
13706. It's essentially an hourly inverse head and shoulders.
Get out of here.
Why isn't mine popping up?
Right. So like you could actually have a move to the 3580, 3600 level and still be fairly bullish here.
Yeah. If you squint real hard, you can see it.
You see the inverse head and shoulders, right?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yep. So
My dad is delayed by 10 minutes. That's why.
Oh my God, you got to pay that extra $2 a month, Nick.
I mean, I don't pay for. I use TradeStation. I don't pay for.
I mean, I'll Venmo you $2, dude.
we can definitely crowdsource $2.
GP will pitch in $1. I'll pitch in $1.
Is that how much it is for trading?
Yeah, it's $2 to get live data.
I should probably just become a member of the site. I like using their charts.
Yeah, I know GP uses Thinkorswim, right? GP.
I miss eSignal.
But I love TradingView. I haven't found anything that I like better as far as a user. And this isn't actually the web view of it. This is actually the TradingView app for Mac.
Oh, really?
I fired this up this weekend. Yeah, normally I'm looking at it in my browser. But to me, it's just so smooth in the way I draw. There's no little glitches or hiccups. There's some things that I know that TOS has that I'd like to have. But overall, I don't think that there's a better charting platform out there than TradingView. That's just my own biased opinion.
I've been wanting to sign up for stockcharts.com is the one I think Rahager uses. Stock charts. I just feel like their data is more relevant than.
Yeah, I think Nasty Nate uses them too.
Yeah, and I feel like their data seems more accurate and more relevant than TradingView. Essentially represents Thinkorswim, so I already have Thinkorswim, so I don't get TradingView. It'd be an extension of the same stuff. So I was looking at stock charts, but I haven't yet. That's $40 a month.
I use MarketSmith.
That makes sense.
MarketSmith and TradeStation. I loved eSignal. I don't know if you guys ever used eSignal.
Nope.
Yeah, it's expensive. It was awesome for day trading, but
I love the TradingView like Cyber Monday, Black Friday deals, and that's when you just load up. Shout out to TradingView if you want to sponsor our little TA report here. You can give us.
Yeah, give me some free charts.
Nick doesn't need to be paying $2 a month. You need to give that to us gratis.
I know.
Anyway,
I tried using TrendSpider, and that's pretty good as well.
Yeah, I used that for a while too.
Yeah.
To me, the web interface was just a little more laggy. Not that it was bad, but in comparison to TradingView, I just like the smoothness of TradingView. Anyway,
yeah.
Well, guys, we did another one. We've been talking everything market that we know for the last hour, but can't thank you guys enough for doing this with me every week.
Dude, yeah,
it was good, man.
Highlight of the week and weekend.